Hi, I'm Maureen Kiley, and I'm the founder of the South Shore Florida Directory, and I'm doing a business spotlight. I have Thomas Strauss here on the phone because he's such a busy guy, we can't get him tied down to a camera. So we're doing this as a kind of a podcast. And thanks, Thomas, for taking, and you go by Tom, so I got to stop calling you Thomas. But
That's correct.
you, you I thank you a lot for taking the time out of your day to do this. You've become part of our community hub and our directory. And we're going to talk about you first, and then we're going to talk a little bit about your business, because people that are going to come into our community hub are going to want to see these businesses and hear from them firsthand how they ended up where they are and kind of what their background is. So why don't we start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how did you go to school somewhere? What is your kind of your background before you got into this business down here?
Sure. My name is Tom Strauss. I am originally from the state of Minnesota. I spent 42 years there, originally from North Dakota, but went to college in Minnesota, 4-year liberal arts college, got a Bachelor of Science degree, thought I was going to be a teacher and didn't. I accidentally got into the forest products industry working for a company called Weyerhaeuser Company based in the Pacific Northwest, which turned out to be a world-class company. It was one of the biggest and most beneficial breaks of my life. As I said, it was quite accidental. But I worked for Weyerhaeuser for 33 years. And it not only was a big company, but one thing that I always tell my clients is that I'm a very, very ethical person. And a big part of that was that I went through a 5-week, very regimented sales training course with Weyerhaeuser in my infancy, with my tenure with them. And a week of that 5 weeks was spent on business ethics. And the primary reason for that, as explained to me, is that this is not Acme Lumber. This was Weyerhaeuser, and Weyerhaeuser was a family name that had gone back, I think, 3 generations at the point that I was there. I think the founder's grandson was the president and CEO of the company. And it was explained to us that when we're out there representing that name, we're representing a family, so that business ethics was very, very important. And I took that all very much to heart. And when I got into the business world myself, obviously spending 33 years with that company, I took it to heart. But I thought that's just a good way to be. Just treat people, tell them what you're going to do, tell them what you can't do, don't lie to them, do the best you can for them every day. And I think that's just good, a tenet to live by in any kind of business world. So that's a little bit about me. As I said, I lived in Minnesota for 42 years. I came down here in 2014 after a horrendous winter in Minnesota. I bought a condo in Sun City Center, Florida, and I was a snowbirder for the first 10 years, I guess. Let's see, 6 years, I take that back, 14 to 2020. So the first 6 years I was a snowbirder. I would come down in the winter, go back in the spring this time of year. And then in 2020, I came down here to live full time. Now, you might ask how I got into being a handyman. Well, for 16 years of my tenure at Weyerhaeuser and after my divorce, I managed an apartment building in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I did a lot of painting. I fixed screens. I did, fix locks, unplug toilets, put in faucets and sinks. Little basic repairs on, bathrooms, a little bit of electrical work. It's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type of thing. But I worked with a gentleman who owned the building who was very patient and taught me an enormous amount. I always say I learned a lot in my 20-year marriage as being a homeowner, because, if you want to do something, you can't afford to have it done. You had to learn how. And then the following 16 years after that, 20 years, working with my pal Cliff Gensler, who owned the building, I just learned a ton. And when I came down here, I wasn't doing this. I wanted to come down here and live, and I was retired from Weyerhaeuser. I had a pension, I had Social Security, and I thought, I'm just going to take it easy. But like a lot of people, I had my health, I had a lot of tools, and I had a lot of know-how, and I got bored. And so I think, well, I can parlay that into money to go visit my daughter who's still in Minneapolis and my son who lives in Oregon. So that's kind of how I got into this business. I always say that I tell my clients, I rarely take any money that I earn from you to the bank or to the grocery store. I take it to the bank, and when I have enough in the bank, then I go visit my kids. So
Yeah, that's
that's kind
great.
of that's kind of me in a nutshell. So this is not the kind of thing that I rely on. It's the kind of thing that I like to do. I like to stay involved. When I came down here, it was during COVID, obviously in 2020. It was during COVID. And it was a good way for me to stay linked to the community. There's a lot of elderly people in Sun City Center. We all know that. And it was a good way for me to stay in contact. I had business cards printed that said, "May I help you?" which is what I always said when I answered the phone at Weyerhaeuser. And that's just been kind of the genesis and the progression of how I started out as a lumber salesman and got into being a general handyman.
That's amazing. Little tidbit to add to that Weyerhaeuser story from my perspective is I used to live in Seattle for 9 years, and I was very familiar. I traveled all around that state, and they were everywhere.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That name is ubiquitous in the state of Washington, but also in the state of Minnesota, oddly enough, because they had years and years and years before I started with the company, they had a major sales center in St. Paul. See, I couldn't go into an auditorium at a park or a school without it being the Weyerhaeuser Auditorium, the Weyerhaeuser this, the Weyerhaeuser that. They pumped tons of money into that community because they had a massive sales presence there, going back into the 1940s and 50s.
Wow. So when you moved down here, you're kind of like me. I was a person who moved here in 21 during COVID. We were part of the mass exodus out of California. And we just wanted to, enjoy Florida weather and all of that. And I could work from anywhere. And so when you were here during that time in 2020, and you had all these tools and you had everything, is there a particular thing that you liked doing the most? Like if somebody was watching or listening to this and watching our final production, what would you say to customers here in the local area in South Shore? Like, what do you really love to do, and how can you help?
I guess I like to paint because it's always gratifying for me and the client to see or they might not have been painted for 25 years and they're all scratched and scuffed up. And I really enjoy presenting, seeing for myself, my own satisfaction, but presenting to the client the before and after. And invariably, it's like, oh my God, I wish I'd done that sooner. And then by the same token, I get the same kind of pleasure from a lot of people do epoxy driveways down here, driveways, lanais, garage floors. And the same thing, they're all torn up. Everything is concrete down here. Everything is torn up. Whatever was down there has been degraded by the sun. The extreme heat and the sun is bad on everything. So after I came down here, I learned how to do like a power wash, stripping let's say it's a driveway or a lanai or garage, whatever it is. Power washing everything down to where there's really nothing left. Any paint that's on there has been taken off. Then I do a process that is a silicone primer. The silicone primer will seal out any moisture, for moisture getting in. And it also acts as a bonding agent for the epoxy paint. And it's called a one-part epoxy, but I put 2 coats down per the manufacturer's instructions. And I've probably done a dozen of those in the 5 years that I've been down here. And the same thing I would say about that as I would say about the paint. People walk out there after I've done with it and they'll say, oh my God, I wish I'd done that sooner.
And I wish I knew you when I moved here, because I didn't have anybody. And that's the greatest thing about our directory, is that we're going to be able to start talking to people and pushing this out, because there's so many people moving here. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. And you don't know who to go to. So let me ask you something about pool decks. So when you were talking about that for epoxy on the garages and the patio, the pavers,
Mhm.
is it slippery? Like, so I see people's around here where they have pavers and they have somebody come power wash and then they put something on it. And
I think it's an acidic substance that kind of chips the paver. And to be honest with you, I've not done that. I find that to
okay,
be just, I've got COPD. And so I don't want to really be around anything that's going to compromise my respiratory function. But
sure.
I'm familiar with it. I've heard of it. I think it's an acidic solution that is sprayed down, and then it kind of pips the surface of that paver.
Well, I was curious because what about like things like travertine by the pool? You know, the weather and the water erodes that stuff. And I
Right,
know because
right.
I'm dealing with it. So I was just curious as to, do you work with travertine at all?
I have not, to be honest with you. And that's the other thing I'll say to you and anybody else that's listening is that um, I am very forthright and I will tell you what I've done successfully, what I like to do, what I can do, and I'll be equally honest and tell you what I haven't done and don't want you to be the guinea pig with me trying it the first time. So travertine is not something I've done, and I'll tell you that about anything that I've done. If there's something you suggest and I've done it, I'll say, "Yep, quote your price, we'll get it done." If it's something
Okay.
I haven't done, I'll tell you that too.
So
So
what
we're not going
about
to have any nasty surprises.
So what about like basic like light fixtures changing out or ceiling fans? Do you do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Light ceiling fans. If you've got down here, I think code for GFIs is like any electrical outlet that's 3 feet from a water source, like typically in the kitchen, laundry, or bathroom. Those by code are supposed to be GFIs. I've done a lot of those, and I'm very, very comfortable doing those. Those are pretty simple for me.
Okay, and then but you would also help people like hang and connect a ceiling fan or change
Or
out
light
actual
fixtures.
fixtures.
Yeah, yeah. Light fixtures are pretty simple. Light
Yeah.
fixtures are really simple for me.
And
Yeah. And
you only do interior painting, is that correct?
um, you know, yes, yes and no. I have done some exterior painting, but to be very honest with you, is when I was younger, when my father would say, "Get your butt out there," and the house needs to be painted about every 3 years. I did that, and it's hot in the sun and it's not much fun. Um, I don't have the ability to get up into a second story house. If it's a one story, I've got a ladder that'll expand to 14 feet, so I can get up onto any one story building. And I'm not opposed to doing that. I'm not afraid of working outside, even in Florida's heat, because I figure I'm going to go out there and I'm going to work about 4 hours and then I'm going to break off and then I'm going to come back the next day. My price is going to be not by the hour, it's going to be by the job. So if it takes me a little bit longer than it takes somebody else, you're still going to pay the same amount for the job. And so I'm not going to kill myself, but I'm not opposed to doing that. In some ways, exterior painting is easier because you don't have to tape as much,
Yeah, I
and
bet.
you don't have to cut in from the ceiling to the walls. I cut in with brushes, so I'm very meticulous when I paint inside. If there's baseboard to be done, I always tape those off, and so that's meticulous work. But outside, I think in many ways it's probably a little bit easier than that. So I'm not opposed to doing that. As I said, as long as I can stay on a one-story house.
Okay. And so what about like faucets? Maybe you don't know the answer to this, but I've got to ask. Every time we have a hose put on our faucet outside and we don't take it off, when we put the little sprayer handle on it, what is
Hmm.
up with Florida water that the thing gets stuck? You can't get it
Explain that
off.
to me again, Maureen. Explain that to
So
me
when you
again.
have a hose, right? And then let's say you want
Mm.
to add the spray nozzle on it, and
Correct.
you have it, and like say you don't take it off for months.
Oh,
I
I
just
see.
tried this the other day. This is why I'm asking these questions. And I don't know if
And
you
you
have
just
the answer, but it
you
drives me
simply
nuts.
can't remove the nozzle.
You can't remove it. It's stuck.
Okay, that's pretty simple. Vice
Okay.
grips, two vice grips.
Oh, we tried
One,
it.
one. Oh, you really? Well, there's penetrating oil. You can go to Home Depot and get penetrating oil, which will penetrate like rust and stuff like that. It's probably why it won't move. It's probably because it's rusted after so long. I would try a little penetrating oil, let that sit for about an hour. You know, spray it obviously right where that joint is, and then I would put a vice grip on the male end. I'd put a vice grip on the nozzle end, which is the female end, and I would just torque on it.
Well,
That's what I
now
would
every
do.
woman that doesn't have a handyman or a guy around to help them, and they have these stupid hoses in Florida that get stuck because this is the second
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
They're
Hmm.
calling you.
Well, yeah, well, that's right. And you know, so much of you know, and this is not an issue I've ever had. I've never had anybody ask me this, but it's problem solving. I always tell people it's so much of this is problem solving. I couldn't tell you the number of times I've gone into a job and I'll just go, "Oh, I didn't expect to see that." You know, I can't come up with any examples, but it's happened to me before. It's like, "Oh, this is more than I thought it would be. I've done this 10 times and I've never seen this issue before." So
Right.
then you just kind of start going, okay, problem solving 101. What do I do? What do I do? This is, you
Exactly.
have to look at it from, this is my house. And I do. I look at all these jobs like, what would I do if this was my house? What am I going to do to make it better to solve the problem without making things worse? And that's a big part of this is just problem solving.
Okay, so do you do any kind of woodworking kind of things like crown molding or like
Ironically, you know, the answer to that should be 100% yes, but it's an unequivocal no. I worked in the forest products. I sold all that stuff for 33 years. My former father-in-law was a master carpenter. Do you think I learned anything from him? Not a bit. Not a bit. You know, we didn't have a lot of carpentry work to do around the house, so I would do with him what we needed to do for the house. You know, again, like needed to replace a faucet or something of that nature. We'd get together and we'd do it. We built the deck. We poured cement for a driveway. We cut down trees. You know, you do the things that a homeowner has to do. But I wish I was married for 20 years and I wish I'd spent more time learning from him. But the honest answer is no. That's a simple
okay,
answer.
that's
No,
all
no
right.
crown molding, no countertops, no backsplash.
Okay. All right. So basically, I think the main thing is that you can do small bathroom jobs, sinks. Do you install garbage disposals?
I haven't.
Okay. And
Yeah,
painting?
where I lived in the apartment, we didn't have those, so I never learned how to do it.
Yeah, sure. I bet you could figure it out though.
Yeah, I've seen it on YouTube. I think what I need to do, I think Home Depot used to do hands-on teaching sessions. I'm going to inquire from them if they still do those. You know, you just go in to their little break room and do like a 30-minute session with a master plumber. If they still do that, I'm going to take advantage of that because that's something I've declined too many of those jobs.
Yeah, I think it's pretty prominent thing when you're, especially some of these homes
Yeah,
that are older, you know, they
yeah. Mhm.
you have to add a new disposal. So,
And,
well,
and as I said, I've seen it on YouTube and it doesn't look that hard.
so what's the best
So
way that people can get in touch with you to ask for help?
I would say preferably just call or text. I like to hear from people. You've got her. If you don't have, I can give you my email address too, and that's certainly perfectly fine. I prefer calls or texts
Yeah.
or
So
emails. Yeah.
so we're going to put that in the description here so people can have it when they listen to this, but you
Mhm.
if they're just listening, go ahead and tell everybody your phone number.
My phone number is 651-917-1944. Email is lowercase thomas dot strauss1954 at yahoo.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me on this busy day, and you know, you didn't have to do this, but I think the people in the South Shore community will really appreciate hearing about the man behind the business.
I certainly hope so. And I appreciate your assist in this too. This wouldn't happen without your kind assistance. So I appreciate you as well.